Give us a bit of a window into how producing racing is different from the other things that you've done, whether it's the NHL or other sports that you've been involved in. How hard is it to be a racing producer?
I think it's really hard. I mean, I love it, but it's never stops. It's in real time. You cannot plan. You can think that you know every storyline going in. And most sports are like that too. I mean, you can prepare for an NFL game and think it's going to go one way and it goes total opposite way. But racing, there's so many variables, whether it's NASCAR or IndyCar, depending on how many cars you have, 22 drivers in IndyCar that are constantly on the track. You have 22 teams, 22 strategists, 22 cars. Like you start multiplying the characters involved, just the characters, it's over 100. Then you're getting into the actual technology, the technology you see on the air, the technology of the car, explaining the car. Then you get into the strategy. There's so many things happening at one time, and it's in massive amounts of space, miles of racetrack. Some places that you can't keep track of everything at the same time, although you're trying to. Um, and how, stories are coming and going, as they say. Drivers are coming to the front, drivers are going to the back. It's just not obvious. There's nothing obvious about doing a motorsport event. It's always something different. Everything's always on the edge, whether it's the speed, the driver, the team, sometimes even the show, because you're trying to follow all the storylines. And you never, except now with stage breaks in NASCAR, you really don't have timeouts. There's no regrouping except for your 2-minute commercials. I really find it's probably the ultimate challenge. It's a
Yeah.
giant puzzle. You're making split-second decisions constantly, sometimes, more than 10 in a minute. You're making these split-second calls and following stories based on everything, how it's all unfolding. I love it. There's nothing like it, honestly.
And you're competing now not only against maybe what you see in front of you, but now all kinds of other elements, including online activity. Now, as you know, in examples of sports and football, there are now multiple channels showing the same game, but with different feeds. In the case of Monday Night Football and what the Manning cast has done, so it's no longer Pam the setup with a few cameras, right? From my vantage point, it's wildly complex. Do I have that right?
Yeah, because everybody wants a different peek, behind the curtain, wants
Right.
to know more about the car, more about the driver, more about the technology, more about what's going into the strategy. I mean, but the interesting thing about racing is where you have, you know, 10 NFL games on a Sunday happening at one time or within a few hours of each other. You have one race. You have either an IndyCar race at a certain time, a NASCAR race at a certain time, a Formula One race at a certain time. And all weekend your playing field's the same group of people. So it's like every week, how do you make the cars, the people, the racing interesting? Because even though you have 38 weeks here and 20 weeks here and 25 weeks in different series, you're only playing with the same deck of cards, so to speak. So whereas the NFL, you've got different matchups, you've got different players, you've got different head-to-heads. Here, you've got what happened the week before and how you spin that forward. So that's different too. But, to your point, I mean, there are different feeds. There are people in chats. There are social
Hmm.
media things. There's online racing and iRacing and esports and all that. But in reality, the beauty of motorsports is there's really, when the event's happening in that series, it's the one event. Even though there might be multiple options for different types of racing, it's that one group that you're following.